Inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Freedom's calling, I feel the fire that's deep inside us. Everybody wants change, but tell me who will guide us. To the leaders that pass away, put up your lighters. It's a beautiful struggle, but it cannot divide us. We're the ones that we've always been waiting for. See yourself in the mirror and open up the door. Walk through it and feel the love throughout your pores. Be the light, life's purpose is to feel joy. Metaphysical, lyrical, standing up for truth. The only one to make change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loo. Now you can be the same, or you can be the change. Find strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You create your reality, it's up to you. Be the change
that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace,
aspire to be
someone who fights for the beliefs. Like Martin Luther King,
aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
Allah,
Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
My soul yearns for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scarred, trying to settle the score to maintain an archaic platform of power and greed. People fight for land out of survival and need. So I'm killing my television and I'm planting a seed to fill my head with knowledge that I'm seeing recede. Due to the media propaganda killing my creed. Oh, what don't kill me make me stronger, feeling straight when I bleed. Fight for interest before it's attached to feet. They try to sell you anything in this world, nothing for free. Land, air, fire, and water, they keep up in the ante, while the anti-proletariat told the powers that be. But we keep fighting, surviving, and we constantly inclining. We see through the lying and prying. They tactically keep trying to keep you from asking the why.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace,
aspire to be
someone who fights for the beliefs. Like Martin Luther King,
aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
Allah,
Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
We find solutions, different possibilities, creating organizations like Aspire to Be, inspiring young minds to see, building life skills, nurturing creativity, fulfilling the youth's basic needs, listening actively, teaching the tools to succeed, positive role models, we plant the seed, the roots drink the water which feed the trees, someone help me, giving back is my responsibility.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi, live for peace,
aspire to be
someone who fights for the beliefs. Like Martin Luther King,
aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah,
Allah,
Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
do it. Eric Noetic with the amazing Nathan Willoughby, the stoic, the disseminator of truth bombs. This guy's been telling me how he's just been sharing this stuff relentlessly, everything that's going on in the world on his page, relentlessly speaking out about this, and he doesn't care anymore. It's about time people spoke up about what's going on. And that's something I really admire about you, Nathan. I mean, I know you've changed your career essentially because you don't want to capitulate to the BS that's going on in the world right now. And
Pretty much, yeah.
Every time I hang out with our friends, they're always telling me about how Nathan will just not stop talking about everything going on because you're passionate, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
What's the drive behind everything that you're doing? Because you're one of the people that has really been standing up against a lot of the craziness that's been going on here. So what's driving you, brother?
I don't know. I just want to know the truth, to be honest. I don't think we're being told the truth. And then, like, I know what the truth is, right? So, and they're censoring it, and they're basically making you, they're hiding it from people, and it just really annoys me. It really, really annoys me because I think everybody should have access. I think the people in charge in society have a responsibility to the people to tell the truth, but they don't. They tell a narrative. They tell a very small portion of the truth, and it's to guide you down a particular path. They sell you a particular narrative, which is not the truth.
Damn straight, man. It certainly is an information war in the 21st century. I was hearing Tim Pool talk about how we're really at a point where we're dealing with 4th, 5th generational warfare. War isn't going to be this, we take over the United States Capitol, we capture the flag, and we kill the bad guys. It's now done on this subliminal level through the media, through advertising, by winning hearts and minds, and by censorship, really, And I think that's what's going on right now. I mean, we're seeing at the moment presidents being censored. Before we get too into this, I just want to do a quick introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, be sure to like this video, subscribe, click on the bell, tell your friends if you want to support us. You know what to do. And you know what I'm about. Got Nathan in the house over here. Let's rock. Nathan, do you want to introduce yourself? Just I know I kind of brought up what you've been doing a little, but yeah, man, tell me about yourself and just for the audience and what you've been up to just over the last while.
Yeah, my name's Nathan. I'm just a regular guy, to be honest. I am someone over the last few years that has sort of started to research certain events and certain goings on, and there's just been sort of a level of unease that's sort of risen within me, and I've started to understand that.
Keep talking. I'm just going to check this out.
All right. What we are being essentially told is not the truth. A very large portion of what goes on in our society is kept from the public, and it started with me with really Jeffrey Epstein, and also 9/11. I mean, there's a lot of coincidences with 9/11 that the statistical probability of something like that happening is like almost, well, it's impossible, really.
Started with the JFK assassination with me, man. You know, this shit has been going on for a long time, man. The government pulling these false flags, then using it as justification to go to war, to take away your freedoms, and you never get it back. They say, "Oh, look, mate, it's only going to be for a few weeks, or just a few months, just to flatten the curve." And no, not now. Until everyone gets boom shakalaka. By the way, I'm trying to keep this legit, so I'm trying to avoid mentioning the word vaccine too frequently or using boom shakalaka.
Yeah.
Now, unless you all get boom shakalaka, we're not going to return to normal. And when we do, you'll still need to wear a mask and do as you're told.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's bro, but look, I kind of digress a little. Let's talk about censorship. What's going on with Trump right now? Because this is fucking Donald Trump, the president. I mean, he's still the president, right, of the United States. He has been censored from Twitter,
He's been
from
censored
Facebook,
from every social media platform.
And why?
That exists.
for apparently incitement. And like I was checking out the Twitter's explanation, I think it was, for why they took him out, because from what I've heard, he never actually told anyone to go out, told these Trump supporters to go out and storm the grounds or anything like that. But apparently, this is the frustrating thing. Apparently, because his words, the context, it could have been interpreted as incitement. It's now grounds for Twitter taking you down because they don't want to. They don't want to allow you to have your words misinterpreted by idiots. Therefore, this is crazy. So now, not only do you have to watch what you're saying as far as incitement of violence, which makes perfect sense. I mean, I don't support people telling people to actually commit violence, but now I have to watch my words being interpreted wrongly by someone. This is what it's come down to.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing as well. Like, the rules apply to one group of people, and a different set of rules apply to another. So the Democrats, pretty much all year, along with the mainstream media, have been inciting violence with Black Lives Matter and Antifa, right? And that's fine. That's okay. I was looking at some tweets yesterday under the hashtag Burn Louisville. There's still tweets that exist saying essentially burn it to the ground, right? And then you've got the President of the United States, albeit he has a larger platform, saying something that you could very, very loosely construe as, well, you have not to storm the Capitol building, but to have a reason to be angry about what's going on because of the fraudulent election and the due process that was not undertaken.
Sure.
And then they just essentially get rid of him. I mean, it's I'm going to basically ban everybody that I do not agree with.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's how communism starts.
Well, I think it's become a case of if you don't have the right politics now, because it's not, let's be honest, it's not about incitement, it's not about hate speech. If you simply have the wrong views, people are inclined, and look, a lot of this stuff is within their right. Don't get me wrong. Like, people have the right to choose if they want to hang out with you, if they want to have you in their establishment, based off of X and Y. It's not a particularly good to bring about a cohesive society if we just start discriminating on little things like I know whether or not your views on Trump, like you like Trump, because you could support Trump for many reasons, right? But this is what it's come down to. I mean, I'm seeing my friends, right? I mean, they're not really my friends, but I'm seeing people just cut people out of their lives for saying things like, oh, you know what? I mean, I think these elections, I mean, I'm a little apprehensive about the legitimacy of it. What, are you denying that? Are you denying that this election was legit? I mean, people get frustrated at you even questioning the narrative. Whether it's with the elections, whether it's with this pandemic. I mean, and you know what? I was thinking about this. I came across a meme that was talking about how I think it was the CIA or the KGB, they did this psychological experiment back in the 60s where they just inundated the populace or the sample group with fear-based news. They got them into this state where they were very fearful, and they did this for about 2 months. And after 2 months, regardless of what they would tell them, regardless of any contrary information, they weren't receptive to any contrary information, And it's a form of mind control. You get people in a state where they're fearful when you've just inundated them with one narrative, and they become to change their viewpoint. And it's also like the law of first report. When someone hears an idea first, be that a religion or something about what's going on in the world, they become less inclined to change their stance because no one wants to admit that they've been fooled, right? And I feel like this is what's going on, man. It's fucking crazy. Like, bro, I would love to hear your comments on this video. I have like a few little articles and stuff lined up here, but this kind of just shows some of the mainstream media headlines that have been going on just for the last few weeks and months. Check this out.
People say to me, when are we going to get past COVID? We're not until we get a vaccine. That is the reality.
Make that a feature of the weeks and the months and the years ahead, for however long we have to wait until a vaccine comes, what life without a vaccine looks like until we get a vaccine, right the way through until a vaccine comes.
Bro, they've been saying this for the last year almost, right? We're not going back to normal until we get a vaccine. This has been the mantra. Let me just get this back over here.
And what's the most concerning thing about that is that they have lied they're lying to us because the WHO comes out and says that the vaccine itself won't end the pandemic. It only reduces symptoms. It doesn't stop transmission. There are people dying after they take it. I mean, what do you mean? These people are they're stone-faced lies, and the WHO, they changed the definition of herd immunity to include vaccination. It was never about. It was about how many, what percentage of the population had developed immunity to a specific virus. Now it's how many, the percentage of people, how many of them have been vaccinated.
And they changed the definition of pandemic. Apparently now it's about transmission.
2009,
Yeah.
yep.
But to play devil's advocate, I mean, why do you think they do? I mean, other than taking on you know what? I've stopped using the word conspiracy theorist. Now I'm going to use conspiracy fact, because every time I use that, people are, I don't like conspiracy theories. But other than the angle of common sense, I would say, I mean, what other reason can you think of as to why they would change these definitions? Maybe it's
to make money to suit their agenda.
No, but if we're trying to look at this from the perspective, like trying to play devil's advocate here, can you think of any reason why they would change this definition? I mean, because I would think you would think, I'd imagine, that they're trying to make this thing seem more serious than it actually is, right? But what other explanation could there be?
In 2009, the WHO changed the definition of what constituted a pandemic, right? Before then, a certain number of deaths needed to occur in order for a pandemic to actually be classified as a pandemic, right? They changed the definition 6 weeks after someone pointed this out, right? Retrospectively. And then what happened was, with the vaccines for the swine flu, there were people on the WHO that were also sitting on the boards of vaccine companies, and these vaccine companies made billions and billions of dollars from this swine flu vaccine.
No one wants to hear that kind of stuff, though. It sounds like
exactly why.
Sounds like a conspiracy, mate. No, look, personally, I think Dan Andrews, ScoMo, Fauci, they're all doing the right thing. They have our best interests at heart. And the reason they're trying to make this serious, because some buffheads like you just aren't taking this seriously.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to level everything off, you know. I mean, obviously, they have to... It's better to be safe than sorry, so it's better for us to mask up for the rest of our lives. It's better to get... boom shakalaka, just in the event that, there is a serious virus, even though the boom shakalaka might kill us. I mean, let's talk about... This is the crazy thing, right? Like, I'm pretty sure this isn't just a phenomenon that we are seeing, in the dark recesses of the interwebs, but mainstream news is reporting the stuff that's been going on with this boom shakalaka. I mean, people have been fainting. Yeah. People have been... And look, YouTube, I personally think that everyone should take the boom shakalaka, but I'm just illustrating this just to show how there are all these buffheads out there that they're just not doing the right thing. But no, seriously, the mainstream news is showing people that have been fainting. They're showing people that have. I mean, it's been reported in the UK that people, mainstream news channels, that people have died. I think we're up to 6 at the moment. Yeah. Just the other day now. Bear in mind that this is not coincidental. Apparently a lady, this Portuguese health worker, 41, died 2 days after getting the Pfizer COVID boom shakalaka. But it had nothing to do with her getting the Pfizer boom shakalaka.
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all, obviously,
there's no,
right?
There's no connection between the two.
They've also given warning. I mean, they don't want pregnant women getting this boom shakalaka. People with allergies.
Yeah.
So... I mean, why would anyone in their sane mind take this thing, knowing that there are clearly risks involved, when the likelihood of you catching this boom shakalaka are, by mainstream standards, very, very small, to say the least?
They're buying into the fear. They've been conditioned. They've
Absolutely.
been conditioned. Like, they've been totally subverted. Like, if you look at the TV, they say this most channels say the same thing. I think there's this video that's on the internet about all these different news channels saying exactly the same thing. I can't remember what they're saying, but literally, it's 50 different news channels.
We saw this about a year or two ago.
Yeah,
I know the video you're talking about, and that's why people think that this is. And the thing is, it's not a conspiracy theory. I mean, this is how it works. Systems work hierarchically. You have a look at a bank, a military, and there is an overarching company that is giving out directives to, like the World Health Organization. They have meetings with world leaders, or they do this over Skype, whatever it is, right? Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like you have to go along with this stuff, these recommendations. However, if you don't, you get in trouble. I mean, well, typically speaking, you don't get backing. You don't get financial backing. I mean, we know that the president of Belarus, for instance, he was offered hundreds of millions of dollars to enforce, these harsh measures, Yeah. And this is the same kind of stuff that I would imagine would happen to other leaders. Right. And look, granted, I'm sure he's still around. He hasn't been assassinated, but it's not crazy to think that people get in trouble, leaders get in trouble when they don't capitulate to these recommendations. And as you're aware, the World Health Organization, it's backed by big people. Bill Gates is one of the biggest funders. In fact,
he's the majority donor now.
Exactly.
He's the biggest contributor.
Yeah. So when you see how the system works, basically you have people that have a lot of money. They fund organizations like the World Health Organization, the United Nations, things like that. They have influence, and it's in the interest of the World Health Organization, these companies, to do things that that support their donors. And if they don't receive backing, right? So it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just human nature. People don't want to bite the hand that feeds them. So as a result, we have these restrictions that are put in place because these governments, essentially, they want to continue getting this funding, this support. And they just drank the Kool-Aid and bought into the idea that this thing is super dangerous, which of course it is, by the way. I mean, have you heard about the new strain? Apparently there is a new strain coming from the UK, and as a result, Queensland, they have, you know what's crazy about this? Because, we've all been going through our own lives and whatnot. I know you've moved out. I've actually been looking and going to Queensland. In fact, I was planning to go to Queensland in the next couple of months because I figured everyone in Queensland is laid back. They're all yobbos, I love people like that. But apparently, we're seeing some of the harshest measures now being implemented in Queensland. I mean, apparently they have mandatory masks. But check this out. You're required to wear your mask even in your car there. They didn't have this in Victoria. Even inside your car, what is the sense in that? You're required to wear a mask. And the Queenslanders, they're going through the same chaos that we were going through in Melbourne a few months back. And it seems like you can't get away from this shit. I was thinking of going to Queensland to get away from it. You can't.
Okay, so wherever you go, you're not going to be able to get away from it. People have this, idea that this is going to end. That this is going to end. No. The Great Reset is coming in this year, right? This is not going to end. Big tech censorship is going to continue to get worse and worse and worse and worse. These restrictions are going to get greater and greater. There's going to be a new virus. And I actually think, and look, based on my research and what I think that this virus is real. I think it was created in a lab, and I think it was deliberately released. Okay. Now,
well, that's a big claim, and I'm not saying I disagree. I want to play devil's advocate here because we got a lot of normies, I'd imagine. Why would you? What has led you to believe that?
So there is a lot of coincidences, shall we call them? Okay. The World Military Games being at the same time that the virus came out. Okay. That's a happy coincidence. Gain of function research being banned in the US, and then which was being done at Fort Detrick, I believe, and then it was transferred overseas to China to the Wuhan laboratories over there, where they were doing gain of function. She was overseeing that. There's a photo. Look, it's hard to know what's real and what's not. There's a photo of him visiting a laboratory supposedly in China. Mm-hmm. Who knows? That could be a laboratory.
A lot of circumstantial evidence. Yeah. Sure, I get it. I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. I mean, we know for a fact that it's not outside the United States government, certain government agencies to do shit like this. I mean, we know of situations like
China could have done it deliberately too, in order to try and assert power from the US. Look who's becoming president now.
Absolutely. I mean, the Gulf of Tonkin incident is a classic example of what the governments are capable of. This led to the Vietnam War. Basically, apparently they went to war because one of the destroyers had been fired upon, but that shit never happened. And then there are plenty of other conspiracies that. When I say conspiracies, as in the United States essentially bullshitting, doing what we call false flags. So saying that something is going on and to use this as justification to bring about more totalitarian regimes. So if you actually have a look at the history of the world, going back to ancient Rome, Julius Caesar would speak about the same kind of stuff. Essentially, it's called the Hegelian dialectic, essentially manipulating the public by orchestrating some disaster to get them to beg to go to war, when essentially you've always wanted them to do this so that you can use this to to take away their freedoms
Problem
and things like that.
solution, yeah.
Absolutely. So it's not
David Rockefeller said in '94 that the world was on the cusp of accepting the new world order, and they just needed the right crisis to do it.
Yeah.
And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Has said something similar, because governments love pandemics because it's not just a 2-for-1. It's a free for all. You can basically take whatever you want from the people under the guise of you might die.
Absolutely. The guise of it's so frustrating. Like, how far are people willing to give up their freedoms for security? Because this is what it's all come down to, right? I mean,
like, what's the point of life if you can't live?
Yeah. And look, I was actually just going through your page, man, just having a look at some of the shit that's been implemented in Australia, and then, just all my feeds have been flooded. And this isn't, we know for a fact, just like how we had the omnibus bill, right? Well, I don't know if it's gone through. It was planning to go through.
The omnibus bill went through.
It went through, a different version of it.
A different version. Yeah. So they it was likened a little bit to the Minority Report as preemptive sort of detention powers. That was scrapped from the bill.
Yep.
But the omnibus bill is essentially the reinforcement of a new normal.
Yeah.
People getting cases heard over Skype, over Zoom. If you've got a court case or something like that.
Oh, okay.
It allowed a lot of things to continue happening, but in the new normal.
Sure.
So,
well, that's not too unreasonable. In fact, I recently was part of someone's court case, over Skype, and I thought the thing about the omnibus that blew my mind is this whole preemptive thing. Like, we're going to arrest you because you look like a conspiracy theorist. This kind of this potential for you doing harm. Like, because you might be a troublemaker in the future, I'm going to lock you up and arrest you. And this theme is what we're also seeing in the United States. Now, recently, I think it was in New York, they're looking to put forth this bill where they're essentially doing the same thing. Now,
I saw that, yeah.
Even if you are suspected of not even having of potentially maybe catching the virus at a later point, or anything like that, they can essentially lock you up, detain you for, I think it's maybe, I want to say a couple of months or something like that, 60 days.
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
I'm not sure on the specifics, but essentially they can detain you. And look, we've had some crazy stuff like the NDAA, right? But the idea, it's like security is become this. It used to be this, if we deem there's a potential threat, like we see something. Now it's if you look like you might do something bad in the future. Now it's opened up. It's cast this wide net where essentially you can do anything. You can use to justify anything. Like, let's lock this guy up for the rest of his life because he might say some horrible things. This is the kind of stuff China does, right?
Yeah. Jack Ma Jack Ma's worth $38 billion. He criticizes the CCP, and then he goes missing. No one's heard from him for 2 months, and
Jack Ma. Oh, this is some guy in Hong Kong and China, right?
I heard about Alibaba.
Yeah, so he's behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, apparently in China they'll take out anyone. They'll take out in the same way that Zuckerberg wants to shut down Donald Trump, President of the United States. The Chinese government will take you out. They'll actually come into your house and they will kidnap you for saying the wrong thing. They just do not care.
Did you see CNN and the Democrats want to revoke the broadcast license for Fox News?
What does that mean? So what's that?
They don't exist anymore. They're not on TV anymore. Fox News.
Yeah, because they have the wrong kind of politics. Exactly. Were they doing anything against the law? Were they? What was it? Fake news? What were they doing?
No, you know what's so funny with the whole fake news is that the left wing propagandist media are the fakest of fake news. Russia Today, which is the Russian propaganda network, is more reliable in terms of world events and US politics. And it's a propaganda network. It says, I'm a propaganda network.
I guess the frustrating thing about it is, even when people have been sincere when it comes to ascertaining what is true and what's not, bias plays such a huge role. It's so difficult for people to look at anything clearly when they're shrouded with this, Trump is a racist, or anyone that is, that identifies with freedom must be a right-wing authoritarian. I get this a lot.
Freedom is a libertarian value.
Well, yeah, but
it's not even a right-wing value.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The left tend to be lacking this depth in their assessment. for instance, obviously you're familiar with the political compass, right? Like you have nationalists, conservatives, right? And a lot of times they get put in the same department as, let's say, libertarian or anarcho-capitalist, right? Or like someone like myself, like I'm neither in the left or like deeply in the right camp, right? Like I actually completely, utterly do not believe in any kind of authoritarianism. Like I'm on the political compass, like I am super anti-authoritarianism. Now, people on the left will classify me as being a nationalist, right? Purely because they don't have the ability to see nuance. They say, oh, what? You want people to be able to go out? Oh, you must be an authoritarian. You believe in, oh, you just don't believe in the science. No, I believe in human rights. Oh, you're one of those Trump supporters, right? Like it's lacking such nuance.
They conflate multiple different issues. Like I get a lot
Absolutely.
that I'm a QAnon conspiracy theorist. It's like
that's the default.
I think QAnon is absolutely rubbish.
I don't know much about it, man. I really don't.
Yeah, it kind of gets into like some fairly ethereal kind of thinking, but I think QAnon is like pure deception to try and give people hope that something is going to happen and something might happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've been saying, for example, there's been like the 10 days of darkness for QAnon, that the internet's going to go dark, whatever.
Sure.
Like it actually may happen at some point, right? It actually may happen in Pakistan. Like I was just reading on the way here, the Vatican has gone dark. Apparently, electricity's gone off, and same in Pakistan, in Lahore.
Okay.
So like these things might actually come to fruition, but they've been like apparently they've been in the works for a few years.
Sure.
Now, but
I think
trust the plan. Trust Trump.
Sure. I think what happens is a lot of times when people are questioning of the government, they seem to be questioning of a lot of other things and buy into a lot of crazy conspiracy theories. And because of that, because there is a commonality there, you find a lot of the left people that are more trusting of the government. They're quick to lump anyone that questions the narrative as being, oh, you must be a Q supporter, you must be a Trump supporter, you must be X and Y. When there are many, just like in the left, there are many branches. You know, there's some people that are kind of like centrist. There's some people that are full-fledged communists. You know, there are varying degrees of it. But yeah, a lot of people don't see that nuance. You know, people just say, "Oh, you're a lefty," or "Oh, you must be a Trump supporter," "Oh, you must support Q," and on. I don't buy into a lot of the crazy conspiracy theories, no doubt. Like I am someone that believes in science. I'm not a flat earther. Sorry, guys. I actually believe in satellites. I believe in objective reason and so forth. But you find a lot of people, because they're questioning of the government, because they bullshitted them objectively over certain things, they don't believe the government when it comes to other things. Oh, they must be lying about everything. They must be lying about us having gone to the moon, us having gone to the shape of the planet and so forth. They must be lying about all this other stuff. And that's why you find this commonality, I think, with people that do tend to question the narrative, also buying into a lot of other things like QAnon and so forth.
Yeah, no, 100%. But the media does an excellent job at conflating these issues too. It's like, there was an article written about a few friends of mine, and they said that these people were like right-wing QAnon conspiracy nut jobs. And it's like I know these people personally. They don't subscribe to QAnon.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a way of delegating someone into the realm of silliness. You know, it's like I will say, fundamentally, I just believe in human rights. Like, classically, I don't believe you get the right to force me to stay at home because it violates the highest law of this country, not just the United States, but Australia. Yeah. You know, your natural...
Violates God's law.
Absolutely. That's called the natural law for a reason. I mean, this is essentially where we get the Constitution of Australia, which is still supposed to be the highest law in the country, but people just don't care about shit like that anymore. I mean, have a look at the United States. I mean, granted, in Australia, most people here don't give a shit about the Constitution, right? Most people don't care about it, so it's not worth
anything.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, sure. But in the United States, where they're all about, well, it's supposed to be about freedom. Maybe things have changed. We're seeing these politicians just lock people in their home, applying curfew. I mean, people are supposed to have the right, like these rights will not be infringed. You know, you have the right to assemble, that kind of stuff. Yeah, look, I'm sorry, man, but you're gonna have to stay in your home and this is the crazy thing, man. Like people say that, look, it's about changing the laws. What's the point of changing the laws when the politicians, the police, they don't care about the law? They're just willing to do whatever they're told.
The courts aren't the arbiter of truth. Like, I mean, you can murder someone and get off if you've got the right lawyer. You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like,
and
you
you
can
can
claim self-defense, and then let's say that you've got greater because money buys you. You get what you get with money, right? So if you can
Sure.
buy a really
Sure.
good lawyer, and the other person's poor and can't afford another lawyer, well, the person with the greater legal representation is usually going to win.
Sure, but look, that's understandable in the sense that you're trying. A lot of the times, you're trying to convince a jury. You're making arguments, but when it comes to not even applying like the actual law, like let's say a judge just completely ignoring the fact that, like something that's going on in the United States at the moment, you should be able to go out. You should be able to peacefully protest. Same thing in Australia, right? They just ignore that. This isn't a case of trying to figure out whether or not something has happened. This isn't evidence. This isn't where you get like the adversarial system of the legal establishment. I actually like because that's the best way we ascertain what the truth is. And you have two sides come together and fight. We're not allowing that to happen, mind you, with everything that's going on with this pandemic, right? The real issue, though, because it's a Boolean, it's not really subjective, right? It's these like the Constitution. It's supposed to be objective in a lot of matters. They're just ignoring this shit because they're concerned about apparently they're concerned about their lives, or maybe these big companies, pharmaceutical companies, just want to make money. So it's not even being respected. These laws. That's what I found frustrating.
They're basically doing their best to abolish the middle class too, because we see a significant transfer of wealth now. The billionaire class has gained significant wealth throughout the pandemic because you can't go to mum and pop stores. You can't go to buy. Let's say that you want to get, I don't know, a TV. Right, and there's a local store down the road that that's been around for 30 years that sells home goods, appliances, TVs, all this kind of stuff. Right, you can't go to that because they've said, oh, you've got to shut down. You've got to shut down. So where do you go? Amazon. Right, you go to Amazon, and then you start going to Amazon for everything, and then these businesses they go out of business. Right. And what people don't realize is that when you lose your livelihood, and it's worse in the US because they don't have any support. But if you lose your livelihood, that's it. Your risk of suicide goes up. Your risk of homelessness goes up. I think their figure was 19 million people last year lost their homes in the US. The population is 330 million.
And what's the answer to it? Just print more money. Get people on universal basic income, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, bro. And look, I hate saying this, but part of me is smiling, mainly because I actually there is something exciting, but also ominous about being in these times. I mean, I'm not happy about the fact that people are suffering, but I'm happy at the fact that it's exposing the shit that's going on. Like, there was a time when the left and the right, I think the truth seekers were talking about the Federal Reserve, about how nature of this monetary system, right? Because of the fact that you can just print out lots and lots of money. And we're seeing that happen now. We're seeing how it's affecting many people. And we're going to see that. I mean, when you understand economics, you realize that, when the government is printing out lots and lots of money and giving you handouts like that, it's not really in your interest. I mean,
your
it's
savings mean less and less.
Absolutely,
Goes up.
it's taking money from the unborn. It's essentially taking your money away from you, and it's being. Apparently, the United States in the last few months they printed out 66% of the United States money, like the amount of money that's ever been printed, and this has been reflected in the Bitcoin value at the moment, which I fucking love because bro,
I sold Bitcoin at 5,000.
Oh, you sold it at 5,000?
Yeah.
Oh, bro, you got to be in it for the long haul, man. Like I've been playing around with it, but I just kept it for I got in. My friends have been talking about this since 2011, and it wasn't until 2017 that I actually purchased it.
Yeah.
But I've been seeing people rise into just like super rich status, I mean, people that I communicate with, and I mean, look, I'm definitely I'm not swimming in cash or anything like that, but it's been doing a lot of good for my savings, man. Just over the last few weeks, it's risen to I think it's going up like 60%. This is Ethereum, Bitcoin, and I think we're seeing. Look, it sucks because I realize a lot of people that don't have access to this stuff, like in third world countries, are still going to suffer, but it is putting the hands back in the power of individuals, because one of the ways that the government is able to do all this shit that it's doing is through taxation, is through like the monetary system, and one of the great things about Bitcoin is it's it's a peer-to-peer system, and if you're clever about it, I mean, even Bitcoin, like BTC, are actually developing protocols now to to actually they've set this thing up called atomic swap, so you can use Monero now, which is something that can't be actually traced. It's cryptocurrency. So now you can hide your.
I doubt that it can't be traced.
Well, I doubt that you would be. Well, I doubt that that's the case. I mean, look. Here's the thing. Yes,
do you know there are people in the world that can access this computer right now?
Oh, of course.
Right now. They can access whatever they want.
Of course.
If you're online, you're online.
Sure, but look. You know what? I don't understand enough about the protocols in place, but I do believe that there are very, very smart people that have taken steps to try to keep these transactions private. And Monero has a reputation. Like, Monero is one of these coins that is supposed to be a privacy coin, but you know what? You're 100% right in the fact that
I don't have that much faith.
Yeah, to quote McAfee, and look, I probably shouldn't be quoting because he was one of these guys that was saying that Bitcoin would go to $1 million in 2020, you know, but he is a...
What did he say? Otherwise he would eat his own dick?
Eat his own dick, you know? People, look, the future is unknown. Like, we don't know for certain exactly what's going to happen, but I will say that Bitcoin has been rising, and I will say that when it comes to security, it's not certain. Like, the idea that you can prevent yourself from being tracked in any situation, for that matter, it's not a certainty. Like, I've heard of people talking about how they have these 100%. There's nothing such as 100% safe, and this really gets to the heart of everything that's going on, because people are saying they're taking these steps to be safe, right? But safety is not a certitude in this world. So as soon as you're making your decisions based off of like I mean, look, by you having your money right in a bank account, right, like that's not safe either. I mean, these central banks print money like crazy. The banks can do bailouts, so you may not have access to your money. That's not safe.
Yeah.
Similarly, you're now granted the Bitcoin network hasn't actually ever been cracked yet. Now granted, people have lost their money because they keep their money in exchanges and things like that. There are ways of losing your coins, but the actual system, like its integrity, has been maintained since its inception. However, it's not 100%. So there's a risk involved in keeping your money sort of way in even in a hard wallet.
Yeah.
Apprehensive yet, but bro, I'm telling you, man, like
I just
got to get some Bitcoin.
I don't know. Well, I think the ship sailed, to be honest. But
bro, what do you mean? I mean, there are plenty of other. A lot of people think that you need to buy like 50,000 worth. Put 50,000 buy Bitcoin, bro. You can buy fractions.
I know, but if it goes down to like 30, maybe.
Well, I mean, I love this because people have been saying this since day. Like, there was a point right when Bitcoin got up to like $100, and people said,
I don't even like it. It's like it's the digitalization of the human world. That's what it represents too.
In what do you mean? Like,
well, we're going to a digitized world.
Well, that's technology. That's progress. I mean, what do you want to? Do you want to stay in trees?
I mean, yes, I do. I honestly believe that. I noticed a 5G tower out there.
Sure.
Right?
Sure, but here, okay, this is one of my favorite talks because technology is not necessarily good or bad, right? It's how it's used. I mean, there's some technologies that are.
What about the frequency? What about the radio waves?
Bro, I am not down with that shit.
On our health.
Bro, I'm 100% not down with that shit. Yeah. I actually have electrosensitivity, meaning I can if you get me around power lines, like a massive amount of them, it's actually uncomfortable for me. I'm very sensitive to that shit, and like I'm well aware of ostensibly, right, the detrimental effects that stuff can have in your body, right? Yeah, that's a side effect of technology. But to say that all technology is bad, the cup is a technology. A branch used to pluck something from a tree is a form of technology. There are technologies that have made life a lot better for us. I mean, it's hard to think of the technological advancements, but the wheel. There we go. The wheel. I mean, that's pretty simplistic, right? But it's exactly. But it just happens that a lot of the technologies... Yeah. And a lot of people take on this attitude that, look, I don't like technology. It's not natural. I mean, what is natural? I mean,
earth. I would say natural is of the earth.
Are humans not of the earth?
I think we're of the earth.
Exactly. Therefore, if we produce something, are we not of the is it not natural?
Though. That's a stretch.
But how? But not really, man.
Because trees from the earth.
Okay.
If you take something down from a tree.
Oh, well, you're talking literally. So actually taking something from the earth,
Yeah, taking something from the earth.
What if gorillas, elephants? I mean, they're of the earth, right? They're natural, right? Yeah. What if they go through some evolution where they start doing some pretty advanced stuff, like chimpanzees start playing with sticks and then creating spears and then making some kind of technologically advanced version of it, or more sophisticated, right? I mean, are they natural? You see what I mean? Like
I don't think that's going to happen. That's highly speculative.
But the thing is, we do this thing where we separate ourselves from nature. Like we say, oh, well, humans...
Technology, this separates ourselves from nature.
Yeah, but the thing is, we create this stuff.
Yeah.
We're part of the earth. Therefore, our offspring, which is the things that come out of a mind, they're natural. It's just that it's become so sophisticated, right, that we tend to refer to it as not being nature.
Yeah.
Like T.S. Eliot, well, I think it's T.S. Eliot, I can't remember, the guy that says, once something becomes sufficiently advanced, it becomes indistinguishable from magic. I love that quote because you have a look at old technology, right, and it seems like it's magical. It seems like it's not natural because it's become advanced. Because we've reached this level of development where it's so advanced that it must not be natural. Whereas just like a seat, right? Like the guy, a Stone Age Neanderthal man that decided to take a log and carve it into some kind of seat that he could sit on. That's the technology.
Like it is a double-edged sword, and like
Yeah.
we're in the age of information, so literally like
I hear what you're saying though, Mac. It's so dangerous. Yeah.
Like if we didn't have the age of information, would we have realized? Would it be like public knowledge that Jeffrey Epstein was a child sex trafficker for multiple intelligence agencies around the world in order to blackmail?
Sure.
Probably not. That probably would have been brushed under the carpet, and it would have been kept out of the public eye, right? But because of technology, because of these
sanitation, toilets, the fact that you now, I mean, a few hundred years ago, man, it would have been but one of your biggest concerns would have been getting.
Wouldn't it have been character building?
Look, I don't know. I mean, look,
Dig
if
a hole.
If I had, you know, I love reading history. I love reading history because it sobers me. When I love Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Amazing podcast, and he describes the world not even a few thousand years ago, like what people had to deal with. Like going to war back then was far more gross. Actually, no, that's arguable. I think war period is horrible, but you see the kind of issues people would have to deal with a long time ago, like having to. I mean, imagine watching your entire family being massacred like that. Actually, that's something that happens within this century as well. But most of us
happens at the hands of the U.S. government.
Yeah, but look,
it's okay.
You and I, in our generation, we haven't seen that. Granted, in the Second World War, that history was full of stuff like that. People having their children massacred. You know, it sobers you up. But I think the reason we're seeing so much of the shit we
face different problems today.
Yeah, but I feel like most of our generation have become snowflakes in that they don't appreciate the hardships of life. They just expect everything to be handed to them because they haven't gone through these character building experiences.
Because they have had everything handed to them. We live in the age where like things I can get food here in 10 minutes and I don't even need to move.
Exactly.
I just need to, I just need to go to my door, open it up, and then.
Would you rather not have that? Because this gets to the heart of it.
This is the thing. I do not believe that human beings were created to have that sort of instant gratification. I don't believe that that's good for your mind. I don't believe that's good for your body. Look at how fat we've become in society.
Sure.
I saw a photo from a beach in the 1970s. I think it was Miami, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone on that beach was slim. Like not like muscular or whatever, but everyone was slim, right? You go to a beach nowadays, I mean, you know.
Sure, man.
Or you go to a shopping center, you know, 1 in 3, let's say tentatively 1 in 3 people are overweight.
And that is a problem.
1 in 5 are obese, right?
Sure. I think the problem with the human condition, a friend of mine summed this up for me. Like, she had this brilliant word to sum up humanity, and it's more. It's this idea of always wanting more, growth. And that's the underlying theme within, I would say, life. Like, it's called, like, you've heard of entropy, right? Like, the opposite of that is centropy, this idea that you are constantly matriculating to high levels of awareness. You're moving forward. Like, there's this force where you see, like, you have a look at human beings, if you believe in the theory of panspermia, the idea of more sophistication, cell division leading to more sophistication, leading to mutations in different species, all this kind of stuff. But we see this biologically, we see this technologically, we see this in every area. We are constantly trying to make more shit, more sophisticated shit. Have a look what we're using now.
I think people are trying to play God and they should know their place.
Yeah, but I don't think the problem is growth per se, because we're always... the problem is that our spiritual development is not in line. I call that what you will, like our moral development, spiritual awareness of like who we are, is not on par with our technological advancement. When I say I'm talking about tools that we use in order to manipulate reality. And you have a look at the weapons we have, like nuclear weapons, guns. I mean, we have these. I don't know what they're up to at the moment, but these incredibly destructive fighter jets that can completely disseminate entire cities, right? And that's far too advanced for us, for a people that don't have the capacity to keep themselves in check. It's like we have this.
It's because we've gone away from God, and we've gone away from morality. Everything is open your mind up.
Yeah.
Open your mind up to everything. It's like no. Close your mind. Be diligent with your mind.
Okay.
You know.
Well, that's what I'm saying, man.
Watch
Yeah.
it, because morality has shifted within the cultural paradigm so much that everything is acceptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know, in California now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bill where a 10-year-old boy can consent to having sex with a man.
Ooh, the age of consent, yeah. A 10-year-old boy,
That is disgusting. That is immoral. That is wrong. But that exists within law.
It exists within. Look, here's the thing. When it comes to the laws are obviously the generalized ethics of a community. All right, like there is. Do you realize that the age of consent in California a little over 100 years ago was actually 10? I bet you didn't know that, did you?
No,
did you?
I would think that it was that.
Yeah, you actually have a look at the age of consent around the world now, and it will still average around the age of 14. Believe it or not. Now, granted, it is.
There are
yeah.
like Thailand, I think just.
It's 18 in
yeah.
California, but it's also 16 in New York. It's also it used to be 14 in Alabama. Yeah. It's in Sweden it's 15, and I'm probably shaming myself the fact that I know all this shit, But the point I'm trying to make here is that as communities change their ideas on what is acceptable, we see this.
But that's
idea.
a regression. That's a regression.
Yeah, but I guess that's at the heart of the issue. Like, how do we determine what is right, And to me,
I think we're all born with an inner moral compass. For me, I'm a Christian. I believe in the Bible. The laws there are set out for me.
Yeah, and I similarly believe in the natural law, which is basically God's law. When I refer to God, though, I'm talking about I had the same attitude that the founding fathers had. They believed in this it's hard to define what that is within this personification, that we do within the Christian worldview. But I believe that there is some intelligent force out there. I can't define it, but I also believe that there are principles inherent within the universe. And you actually have a look at the founding fathers, Jefferson, like when he actually formulated the Jefferson Bible, like he took the basic fundamental ideas within Christianity, right, and formed principles around them. Like don't take.
That's blasphemous to me.
Sorry,
that's
blasphemous. Like the idea
taking the Bible and putting your own spin on it.
No, it's not putting your own spin on it. It's taking the morals of it. Like, don't steal, don't rape, don't take that kind of shit. This is actually.
So what you're saying is what he took is he translated them into.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, I'm talking about the natural law, which actually comes from God's law. That's what I'm talking about there. Yeah. So the Jefferson, like what I'm talking about when I talk about the natural law, which is basically what I believe. This is how I determine what is truthful. I agree with you that you can actually, within yourself, there's like a logos. This is like the Gnostics. They were supposed to be the heretical Christians, a long time ago. They believed that deep down within you had an understanding of right and wrong, and you can understand that through your intuition. Like, deep down, we all know what's right and wrong. Now, granted, some of us have articulated this within a logical philosophy, which we refer to as the common law, natural law. That's the basis. And I think because we moved away so much from that, we've fallen into this worldview where we allow the status quo, popularism, to determine right and wrong, rather than the objective God's law. That's why we've fallen into the situation we are in at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would agree with you to a large extent. I think that having a society where everything is easy and given to you and everything is good has bred cowards. So one of the key fundamentals is don't lie to people. Don't lie, and it's hard. It's difficult. I lie to people sometimes. I'm imperfect, so don't lie. But it's so hard to not lie if you actually are scared of the opinions of other people.
Sure. I would look at that deeper, because within the philosophy of, let's say, libertarian natural law, it's about the initiation of violence. Just like people say, how it says in the Bible, don't murder, don't. Yeah. I heard some religious figure talking about this. It's like he actually went into detail, and it's about it. I don't want to butcher it, but he was actually talking about the initiation of it. It's not saying that it's wrong to kill someone, period. In self-defense, Like someone trying to kill you, you do what you have to do to protect yourself, that kind of thing. And this is what the guy was trying to articulate. Similarly, when it comes to lying, if you have Nazis coming into your house and they're asking, and you happen to be harboring Jews, this is, let's say, back in the 40s, of course, as a form of self-defense, I'm going to lie. And I think, now granted, I would say,
true.
I would, in that, this is why within the philosophy of, let's say, like non-aggression, right, the NAP, that kind of stuff, it's all about
I'm
the
talking within the great
absolutely.
context of the cultural...
Sure, like I encapsulate this within the idea of fraud. Like to me, it comes down to taking shit that's not yours. Like, don't commit fraud. Don't like the idea of doing something that leads to the loss of someone's person or property. Like if I lied to you about my penis, right? It's like, how big is your dick? It's 12 inches, man. You know, that objectively, like realistically, that's not going to have any effect on you. However, if you're selling if I happen to be selling something, you know, like I'm selling some kind of like a penis device. You know?
No,
and
a pill.
Let's say a pill, right? And I tell, look, if you take this pill, it's going to make your penis 12 inches long, but it only makes your penis, let's say, 5 inches long, you know, which is a big improvement for you, I know. Well, then that's fraud. That's actually led to your, like, a loss of your person, or that's what I consider to be wrong. And you know, there's certain, and this is what we're trying to do, because it seems like they're gray areas. I believe in, like, looking at things logically. I'm not one of these pacifists that doesn't believe in defending myself.
Yeah,
like,
no, of course.
I also, like, a lot of people think, like, I was hearing this conversation on the Tim Pool podcast, right? Because Tim's still advocating for peace. Don't do these. Don't go crazy and stomp the Capitol. That stuff is going to do nothing. Violence never solves anything. But then you have a look at the history of the United States, right? Have a look at people standing up against tyranny. This idea of saying, oh, wait, people are coming at me and trying to take away that which is mine, I'm going to do nothing to stop it because I'm a peaceful person. I don't agree with that. I have the right to defend myself. They're the initiators of violence here. And we're in a situation right now, just like a few hundred years ago, where evil people have taken upon themselves to take away that which is made people slaves, right? Like, am I just going to say, yeah, master, I'll do what you tell me to do. I won't fight you because I'm a peaceful, God-loving man. No, fuck you. I'm going to pop a cap in your ass, man. You've now infringed the right. Just like in the same way, if someone's telling me that I have to stay at home, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to respond with an appropriate amount of force. I'm going to say, look, man, I think I have a right to step outside, you know? And look, practically, there's a distinction between practicality and, like, making an argument based off of, like, morality. Like, I believe I have the right to use the necessary amount of force to thwart that person from preventing me to leave my home.
You got to pick your battles too, as well.
Exactly.
Because, I think one of the biggest things that you can do today is non-violent civil disobedience, right?
I agree. That's the most effective.
If you don't agree, like, there is a lot of science out there to suggest that masks do way more harm than good, right? Masks.
I would agree with that.
Right. So,
but YouTube, officially, I disagree. I think masks are a great idea.
Yeah. Anyway, but, like, if you don't agree with it, purely based on principle, you shouldn't wear it, because, like,
that's why I avoid mine as much as I can, unless I'm in a private establishment. If they sorry, I'll let you go on. But are you wearing masks even when they ask you to at a grocery store?
They don't ask you at a grocery store.
Sometimes they do. It hasn't. Have you?
I just have a medical exemption.
Yeah, fair enough. I've gone that, but I felt kind of weird about them because, yeah, and look, that's the thing is,
but I have legitimate medical grounds.
Sure, so do I.
Like, it's 50-50. So, like, I have legitimate medical grounds, but I also don't want to wear one because fuck you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I just use the medical grounds thing because fundamentally I don't want to. I do have the legal basis for it, but fundamentally to me, if I'm in your establishment and you ask me to wear one, just because it's not a moral thing, it's just me not wanting to kind of disrespect you. I'll typically put one on because I know people feel apprehensive. However, if I'm out in public and you're telling me that I need to put on a mask, my attitude is, fuck no, you know? And I don't care.
This is the thing, though. This is the thing. Like,
yeah,
it's all part of the sort of, it's all part of the narrative, right? It's all part of the bullshit narrative that we're seeing in the media,
sure,
right? So the mask is just a part of that, right? So if someone is going to force you to wear a mask to be inside their establishment, right?
Yeah.
After that you've said that you have legitimate medical grounds for not wearing one.
Sure.
I'm not going to go there. I'm going to leave.
I admire that about you, man, because I've seen you. You're one of the few people that have taken this stance where you don't even want to get tested, man. You don't even want. You're not even because I mean, this is because your attitude is you don't want to do anything that is going to perpetuate this narrative of acquiescing to bullshit, right?
Yeah.
I respect that a lot, and I think it's really like you're in a situation. We're both in the entertainment industry. You're an actor, so am I, and I've been recently doing a lot of acting work, and it's gotten to the point where like these tests are essentially mandatory now. I thought at some point they would stop doing this. Like I happened to have like signed up for like a couple of big productions, and I ended up getting tested from one of them. I was like reluctantly, and then I didn't want to cancel the other one, so I just ended up going to it. And I'm like, no more. But they still hit you up, and the thing is, the tests are not fun, man.
I know,
and you realize that one, you're by going ahead with this, you're setting the example. It's now kind of perpetuating this idea that, oh, this is just the norm. We should all get tested now. However, if enough people said, look, I don't want to go ahead with this, it's like the market. The people in the industry would realize, oh, we can't do this. So perhaps they would start just ignoring that. But if everyone just goes along with this, like, admittedly, I mean, I've stopped now, but I'm actually, I'm a bit more, I'm not as principled in that sense. And to me, I mean, I'm not violating my own sovereignty. If I want to do it, it's my choice, right?
Yeah.
However,
but you were being coerced. You were being coerced in both those instances.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that, because I call coercion when someone is violating. Like, to me, it's very specific. Like if someone
you didn't do the test, would you have got the job?
No, I wouldn't. But to me, the thing is, it's their job. It's like if I have a business, and in order for you to be like, if you wanted to be part of my business, I have my own rules. I say you can't be in my business unless, of course, you get boom shakalaka or you wear a mask. Then I have a right to do that. It's not a very nice thing. It's discrimination. But I still that's the thing within our current society.
I understand what you're saying.
You understand what I'm saying?
It's their personal choice. Like,
sure, but I agree with you in the fact
and
it's a douchey.
They're only protecting themselves in the greater context of society, because if something happens, they're liable, right?
Yeah.
They could be liable for damages, etc. But this is the thing: if I was to wear a mask, if I was to go ahead and take this vaccine that comes, if I was to go ahead and basically bow down and kiss the feet of the left-wing media, I would be a hypocrite. And I don't want to be a hypocrite.
How so would you be a hypocrite for when you say like, what does that mean specifically?
If I was to wax lyrical about not wearing masks, and then I was to put a mask on, I'm a hypocrite.
Well, it depends. Like what? Here's the thing: if you believe, do you believe in any situation it might be appropriate for you to wear a mask?
If I've got the angle grinder out,
yeah,
and I'm cutting through some.
Okay, fair.
An
sure
industrial mask.
But it comes down, I mean, your principle is that you don't believe in, I mean, to me it's a little different, because I don't believe in people being forced to do things that they don't want to do. If I agree to do something, like I'm not giving up my sovereignty by agreeing to wear a mask, but I am giving it up essentially, no one can make you do something that you don't want to do. At the end of the day, I mean,
the line is different for it's different for different people. The line for me was the mask. That was the last straw.
I hear what you're saying. Like, to me, it's my choice. I'm still just choosing to do that. The issue is when people are forced to do things they don't want to use. People actually use violence. So people say, unless of course you do this, I'm going to lock you up. That's coercive violence. I'm not down with that.
Yeah.
If someone,
But it's a lower form of violence, because let's say that my work goes to me, and they're not going to do this, but unless you have the vaccine, we can't have you working anymore.
Yeah.
That's coercion. You're making me choose between my livelihood and my individual bodily autonomy.
Well,
right?
yeah.
Same with the mask, because the mask, you wear it all day, you're breathing in your own filth all day. You know, what is that doing to your body long term, right? We're in the middle of summer. I'm seeing people on the street all by themselves on a 35-degree day like it was today. I think it was 30, 35, 36. And they're wearing a mask by themselves. No one's in there. No one's around them. What is that doing to their
Sure,
I
agree with you in the practical sense, but what do you say to, like, the socialists make this argument all the time, like, you're forcing me to work because I'm in a situation where unless, of course, I work, I do this job, I won't be able to survive. Therefore, you're coercing me by not giving me this job, that kind of thing. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, an employer, right, doesn't have to give you a job just...
Correct.
Absolutely. And if you're saying that, look, by them not giving you the job, you don't have any other choice. You're not going to be able to survive because you won't be able to feed yourself.
Yeah.
That's the kind of argument a lot of socialists make. But at the end of the day, they're not forced.
I'm not willing. I think the thing is, like, I've made a decision for myself that I'm not willing to compromise my beliefs, and if that means going to the end on these.
Sure, and I respect that. I guess the nuance here is I'm saying that whereas I don't like what the establishments, businesses are doing by. And that's by saying that you have to wear a mask in order to get here. Because I'm trying to be consistent, at least from a libertarian standpoint, I like the whole discrimination thing. I do believe that it's their right to say that I have to wear a mask in order to enter their establishment. Like, I don't have to go along with that. That's my right, though. Like it just as much, it is their right to ask me or to say that in order.
Agree. Yeah. But then if you say that I have legitimate grounds, it is discrimination, and discrimination is wrong.
Well, it's a philosophical thing, because if we're going to be objective about discrimination, like I would imagine you'd think the racial discrimination is a wrong thing, like you shouldn't be able to do that, right? That's a conservative value. I think I should have the right to, if I don't want to hang out with someone, right, not to hang out with them. Like I believe in freedom of association. Like this idea that someone that has a shop has to allow me into their establishment. As for someone like me, a black person. If someone didn't want to allow me into their store because they're black, I wouldn't want to shop with. I wouldn't want to give my money to them, and then being forced to allow me in by the government. Now I am essentially supporting a guy that I don't want to support, and I find that frustrating. I think people should have the right to discern who they associate with, and it's not fun. Like people tend to shrink away from this position because we look at racism and things like discrimination as a gross thing. And I battle with this one a lot because it's like I've met people that are just blatantly don't like people because of the color of their skin, like gross. But I still acknowledge the fact that, look, if I'm trying to be consistent, I mean, am I going to force people to spend time with each other just because?
You're complicating it. You're complicating
No,
it.
it really, I don't think, it's called freedom of association. I think people should be allowed to choose who they want to have in their circle, even in businesses,
You can choose whoever you want to be. You don't have to do it. You can choose whatever you want to be. There's consequences for everything, right?
Sure. But you're saying that they shouldn't have the right to discriminate, to not allow you into their establishment.
You shouldn't have the right to discriminate against anyone.
But we discriminate every single day. Like we discriminate, for instance, I discriminate on the people I'm going to allow into my home. I discriminate on, for instance, I'm not going to go on a date with someone unless, of course, they're a woman.
That's discernment. That's a bit different.
No, it's the same. We're discriminating on sex. Also, it just comes down to whether you're discriminating on race, sex, or... That's
discernment and that's discrimination. They're two different things. You're discriminating based on something that I have. Like
you having a penis as opposed to a vagina, and as opposed to me having darker skin as opposed to lighter skin. Isn't that? Granted they're different, but fundamentally it's the same idea here. The fact that we're making one preference over another. So philosophically, it is the same thing. That's the argument I'm trying to make. It's a philosophical argument. This is why within libertarianism, which is the most objective way of looking at this, you're saying that people should have a right to discriminate, because if you don't accept that, you believe that you can...
Of course, people have a right to discriminate, but discrimination is inherently wrong.
Oh, but we all do that then. This doesn't make it hit. Like when you discriminate over, like on merits, like on someone that is more able to do a job over someone that isn't, that's a type of discrimination, is it not?
Yeah, I think it's different though. I think you're applying it in
ability versus like intrinsic ability.
Correct.
I know that, but the thing is, even when it comes to intrinsic like things like someone's height, someone's size, like fat people, we see society doing this, like saying that we shouldn't discriminate on someone based off of their weight, right? And I'm like, well, if you're too fat, you're not going to be, like, I started doing Uber Eats, right, delivery work, right? Unless, of course, I'm fit, I'm not going to be able to ride my bike all the time. But if we start...
exactly, but there's a common sense, like, there's common sense that's applied to it, but I think it's a bit different, like, when it's something... When someone has a medical condition, it's a bit different. It's right and wrong. Like we're talking about the inherent moral compass that we all have, right? Right and wrong.
Sure, and yeah, I guess my position here is that now there's let me ask you this, because this is what it comes down to. Now you can say that stuff is good or bad, right? But are you willing to use force, lethal force, to prevent someone from discriminating? Like if someone said, I don't want to have any ginger people in my store. Absolutely, that's the distinction here. Because whereas I'd agree with you, that's a douchey thing. It's not the kind of thing that I would be willing to initiate violence on. That's the separation.
Violence is the absolute last resort.
Well, that's what I mean. Like like this is what it comes down to. Like if someone stole something from me, right? Like stole, whether it was my like a puppy I was taking care of or my physical thing, I'd be willing to apply the necessary amount of force to retrieve that.
Yeah.
But when we're dealing with things that you shouldn't be able to do that, like discrimination, right? that's where I stand. Like, I don't think I should be able to use force just because someone doesn't want to allow me into their group or their store because of the color of my skin. I'd be thinking, you're an idiot. And that's the distinction there. That's why when I'm talking about like objective, laws and all that kind of stuff, I'm talking about whether or not, if you don't follow this law, you should have the book basically applied on you. You should end up in jail, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hear what you say. I think it comes down to
you're overcomplicating
value.
it. You're overcomplicating. To me, there's right and wrong. There's no.
I feel exactly this. Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way.
So you've got no if you don't want to let me in your business.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Sure.
Even after I say that I have a medical exemption, that's fine. But you are discriminated against.
Sure.
Me. And in the eyes of the law, which is not always the arbiter of truth, but in the eyes of the law, that is wrong, and you are liable.
Well, we'd have to
go the nth degree.
Sure, but that's this comes down to whole philosophy of law, where it comes from, and if we're looking at because the whole idea of discrimination, that's something that's a relatively new invention within the common law. That's something that we're applying within the modern context, the whole. But anyway, that's another thing. It comes down to
I think I don't want to let this person in my home because, I don't know, I'm a bit tired and I'm not going to really get along with them and what have you. I think is a little bit different to the fact that, we're in the public space, I'm going to walk into a store, you can't come in, I've got a medical exemption, still can't come in. That's
the thing. When you say public space, it's it's still your business. Your business could be your home, that kind of thing. So if your business happens to be has to do with property rights, if it's my establishment, I should have the right to determine who. But it comes down to philosophical distinctions there between what is acceptable,
And you've got to make your mind up for yourself. For example, I'm just no, I won't. Unless the only time I would wear a mask is if I needed urgent medical care.
Sure. But look, in regards to, the mask is one thing, because I hear a lot of people saying, look, I don't mind the mask, but to me, the main issue is what it leads to. The fact that we've gone to this point now. Because look, if this was simply going to be a mask issue, I'd be freaking annoyed. Yeah. But because I know this is getting to something that has to do with, you putting a substance into your body, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is you're going to see the fisticuffs come out here. And let's be, I showed you...
The mask is the precursor to the boom shakalaka.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a popular slogan last year was, it's just a mask, right?
Yeah.
And we saw what that turned out to, Yeah. I mean, not long ago, the Australian government was looking at making this stuff, the boom shakalaka, mandatory. I think the only reason they've done a slight pullback from this now is...
of the backlash.
Well, yeah, that and the fact that publicly we're seeing that this thing... YouTube, I mean, this is what we're hearing in Australia. I mean, I don't know if this is true. But yeah, there have been some downsides, apparently, to people taking this thing. More than one healthcare worker has fainted. And we've had some reports of, quite a few people, passing away shortly after taking this thing.
Every day I see a new case study. Every day I see a new story from someone regarding an adverse effect, and I'm just you think about it, right? You're rushing something that should take 5 to 7 years to actually come to fruition, right? You've skipped the animal trials, which is actually totally irresponsible, right? Mm-hmm. And the last time, a few of the vaccines use mRNA technology, right? And the last time that they actually did that, and they exposed the animals themselves to the actual virus, they died because it induced what's called a cytokine storm, and the immune system attacked itself, and then obviously that's it, see you later. So it's horribly irresponsible to skip the animal trials, and it's just for you and I, we see through it, we're this is just ridiculous. But for the average Joe who has never thought about any of this stuff, they're lambs to slaughter.
Well, that's the frustrating thing. There are some people that have thought about this stuff, but just not very well. I had a date with this girl a while back, and it all the indicators of this not going well. In fact, even before I went on the date, my friend and I was talking to my friend about this. He was like, "Bro, what are you doing, man? You're going on a date with someone like that?" And they said this because all the indicators was she was a full-on leftist, right? Ideologically, and probably not getting along. And the indicators were the fact that she had blue hair, and this is a generalization, but you tend to find the type, and the fact that she had her gender pronouns, on her we're like, okay, so
red flags.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, there's a nurse. Now, typically you wouldn't. She's a nurse. Now, typically you wouldn't think of that as being like your ears wouldn't perk up over something like that.
No, nurses are right. Yeah.
Yeah, but lately, and this is what I've been hearing, we've been finding that some of these nurses are some of the most like sanctimonious, like crazy people. They're raving on about how their work is so important. And they're on the front lines battling the most dangerous virus. And like we've had some nurses come out and saying you're being so selfish. The fact that people aren't taking this thing seriously. And I haven't given much credence to this, but after seeing the way that she acted, like on the date, she made this whole point about how this is the first time she'd been on a date without a mask, and she's really worried about everything, and she'd been a nurse. And as soon as for some reason, like I try to avoid these conversations, because at the end of the day, when I go on a date, I'm trying to charm someone, trying to make out with them. I don't want to like argue over everything. I'm trying to shift away from this conversation. But then we started talking about the vaccine somehow, right? And she mentioned how everyone should just be forcibly vaccinated, and but the thing is, my blood pressure was boiling, because I'm like,
Please
this
tell
is
me
like
you said something.
Oh, here's the thing. My general go-to is to try to be diplomatic, but I'm like, well, you got to consider that, don't you think people might, suffer negative effect? I'm like, what about people's rights to not do this? And she's like, yeah, but you're putting other people at risk, and she made the argument. I hate this argument, right?
Yeah.
That by not getting vaccinated, you're actually being violent towards other people, and it's like you're dealing in the potentiality, and it's like a nuance. But people make this argument that it's an appeal to potentiality, that because the science is showing us that you might be putting other people at risk by not being boom shakalakid, you're being violent towards everyone. I'm like,
it doesn't stop transmission. Did you say that? It doesn't stop transmission.
Getting boom shakalaka.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what they're not sure. I think this is what Pfizer's saying, that they're not sure.
Yeah, they're not
yeah,
sure.
But the thing is,
yeah.
See, I try to steer away from the the epistemological, like trying to determine whether or not like this thing is actually effective, because I don't know for certain. I really don't. Like I agree with you, right? But the thing is, I can't say with certitude whether or not it's transmissible or not transmissible, because I haven't looked at this myself. Like all this information that you ascertain, right? Like. Are you getting this from sources, or have you actually gone and like done the science yourself? Like actually located? Are we all relying on different groups that we trust?
I'm looking at the figures I'm looking at the excess deaths.
Sure.
I'm looking at the death rate, and I'm looking at that compared to other years.
Sure, but you're also putting your trust in some extent, I'd imagine, on some figure. Like there's some people you think are more trustworthy than others, right?
Yeah. So if people have, there's a doctor, a German doctor, Dr. Wolfgang Wodarg. He used to be on the UN regulatory committee, basically, and he was saying that how science works essentially is that they see a problem. So they see this pandemic and they see this problem, and they're like, rather than thinking, is this new? Is this something that we've seen before? Mm. Is this very much like the flu? Mm. Is this a pneumonia? They're like, no, I can help you, and then by helping you, I'll further my career. And that's how science very much works. And he himself is like, this is really not much different to a viral pneumonia. He's like, might be slightly more virulent, might be slightly more, but when you change the way that you classify the deaths, when you change the way,
Exactly. I agree with you 100%, 110%.
And they have everything to lose, if they have their reputation to lose, if they have everything to lose, I'm going to listen to that person, because they could get killed for saying this.
Sure. And it comes to the way in which we reason. Like I believe in like the real scientific process is to refrain from judgment until you're more conversant with the facts. Like you start looking at both, like enough information, and you start to piece together like what is actually real and what's not. Yeah. Like the whole idea of just relying on one source here, which is what most people are doing in the mainstream, and therefore not looking at anything else. This is what the problem is, and this is what we're seeing. This comes down to the censorship, because we're not getting both sides right now. It's this. Anytime you hear an opposing viewpoint, you can't. We were talking about this earlier. Like on Facebook, you say something. We got to talk about this. Facebook, pretty sure YouTube. Most of these social media, they have this policy where if you say something against the World Health Organization that goes against the narrative of the World Health Organization, regardless, in the interest of them, and look, it makes sense. Essentially, they're getting into a lot of trouble from the government because the government's put certain restrictions on what they can do, and it comes down to this thing called Section 230. We'll get into, but they're trying to risk manage their their problems. So yeah, they basically censor anything that goes against the narrative, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with that is a lot of times you're speaking the truth, right?
Yeah.
Or it's actually, and they've made many mistakes.
Factually correct.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the worst thing I've seen is censoring, like we saw this with Donald Trump, right? And look, granted, I understand, like you probably disagree with this, but if I'm a business owner and it's my business, this has to do with the whole internet thing, and I have rules that I have the right to take you off my platform for whatever reason if I think your information is too dangerous and so forth, then it's my business, my rules, all right?
Absolutely it is, but it's not applied evenly across the political spectrum.
I completely agree. This is the issue. Like I've seen the same, interview with Jack Dorsey on the Joe Rogan Experience, and like all the bullshit they do. They make all of these like rules, incredibly vague so they can do what they want. Yeah. But the issue isn't so much that they have a right to do this. It's the issue that the government is essentially incentivizing, through stolen money. Like I personally think taxation is theft. I'm a hardcore libertarian. They're incentivizing these organizations to go in line with their legislation, or they're punishing them. So saying you must, for instance, with the whole mask thing, right? The government is basically saying that this business must enforce mandatory masks. In fact, one of the shopkeepers told me, "Look, I'm sorry, man. Like, I'll get in trouble unless, of course, you do this. Like even when I work with Uber Eats, like, I have to. I mean, I don't like. Oops. This. Of course, I always wear my mask, right? No, but like, you have to put on the mask, right, and then take a shot of yourself just to show that you're wearing the mask, right? But
really?
Absolutely, it's all done through facial recognition and everything, right?
No,
and like the other Uber drivers, they'll monitor each other, like if or people that you deliver to. If no one's gonna report me because I'm always wearing my mask, obviously, and because I'm such a charming person, I don't think anyone has an issue.
So people monitor. So your colleagues monitor you.
Well, they might. I've been watching some videos, and this guy was advising another Uber delivery guy to wear the mask because like you might get in trouble and someone might report him. So it's kind of just sometimes people are just looking out for you, but this is the nature of things, and this is what's happening in the acting world. This is what's happening in. So here's the thing: they've got
citizens policing other citizens
Absolutely.
on behalf of the government.
Absolutely.
But this is the problem here.
All right.
Nobody actually looks and goes, "Is any of this right? Is any of this right?"
Of course, well, I will. The government, and look, I agree with you. Most people aren't. Like people have this idea that the government can do what it wants because it's trying to protect us, right? Like people like you and I that have done a lot more thinking, have a more of like a principled understanding of like right and wrong. So we don't just say, "Oh, the government does it, so it must be okay." I don't do this whole populist bullshit.
Yeah.
Now I say the government doesn't have the right to force even businesses, and this is where we might see some disagreement on, because there's some conservatives that believe that the government has a right to monitor, things within the public space, like you setting up your business. I'd say, fuck you, government. No, it's my business. Yeah, well, here's the thing. The government that should, according to the populace, have the right to control certain affairs, like determine whether or not you are behaving in appropriate standards. Therefore, you wearing a mask has to be enforced, if you have a business. And I don't agree with that because it's my business. I'm a private owner, and this is how it works within common law. This is why so many people in the UK, we're seeing this a little here, we're seeing this in Australia as well to some extent, are basically standing by their common law rights, because Australia is based off the Constitution, and it's written under this idea of common law. And the fundamental basis is if there is no victim, there is no crime.
But I know that people use common law.
It's how effective it is. I love this.
I don't know how effective it is.
Well, okay. Long story short, how effective it is, not that effective.
Yeah.
If you are willing, though, to take this to the full extent of the law. Look, from what I've heard, like I've listened to people that serve on the high court. That's the highest court, right? The amount of cases that actually will appear in the high court are very, very few. We're talking within the small percentage, right? However, if you are willing to take this all the way to the high court, you can actually win, because it's typically only the high court that hears constitutional arguments. Because the way that it works, right, we have constitutional law, right? It's based off of the natural law, that kind of stuff, the common law, right? And then you have private law, which is admiralty law, right? Now, most of the states, the magistrate courts, they're working under this idea of private law, admiralty law. So unless, of course, and the thing is, like the whole know your rights group, it's based off
The
of this.
law of
And,
the sea versus the law of the land.
yeah, absolutely. But they teach you tactics that you can use to win cases and the kind of arguments to make. Because typically these magistrate judges won't want to rule on any constitutional issues, but you can be clever in the way that you structure your arguments and the things that you can say to have them just wave you off. Or if you're willing to go all the way, right, like to have this taken to the next level, you can have this taken all the way up to the high court and you can win these cases. Like this is what happened with the case with DPP versus Hamilton, right, where a police officer decided to basically try to arrest someone, right, with no cause, and this guy ran away, right, and then the police officer arrested this guy, and this guy took this all the way up to court, saying that the police officer had no right to simply just arrest him like that, because they don't.
Yeah.
You cannot arbitrarily just arrest someone and ask them for the name and address. However, the police actually behave like that because they realize most people won't take this all the way up to the high court. So yes, it can work, it does work, but it takes a very a persistent person, and you are playing you are gambling a little, you
You're
know,
playing with fire. Yeah.
absolutely. So it really comes, like with most things, man, how far are you willing to take things?
Yeah. True.
Yeah, man. But bro, this year I think the biggest issues we're going to be facing are, one, the boom shakalaka. I mean, granted, they're not pushing this thing down. I have this theory that, look, granted, they're taking a step back and this thing isn't mandatory, right? They've started with the healthcare workers, right? They're trying to get them boom shakalaka first, right? And then come the elderly, the more vulnerable, right? I think it'll get to a point where, let's say, 50, 60% of the population, this is my theory, are going to have been boom shakalaka, right? Then it'll get to the point where the majority have been boom shakalaka, and there'll still be these cases, and there'll still be these harsh measures, right? Maybe people will be dying from God knows what not. Therefore,
COVID-21.
Yeah, therefore the people that have been boom shakalaka are going to be saying that the people that haven't are the ones that are causing the problem. And there's going to be this outcry from the masses for everyone else, for you bullhead conspiracy theorists, to get boom shakalaka.
Yeah.
And then we're going to start seeing this shift where people are going to be turning on those that buy into these crazy ideas. And I think at some point it's going to be, oh, well, if you don't, well, then you can't do X and Y, which is kind of the case at the moment, like with the mask. And then it's going to be, well, no, now you can't go out in public because you're putting people. And my attitude is, no, I'm just like you, man. I do believe in when I speak about right and wrong, I'm talking about I'm willing to use absolute, like, lethal force if need be. And if someone's coming at me and telling me that I have to get boom shakalaka right in order to go out in public space, I'm going to do everything, diplomatically take to court. But if need be, I'm going to use everything within my power in order to fight that. Because, I mean, what next? Are we going to have, imagine if you have a son or a daughter, your family, and you're watching them being forcibly, have this stuff injected into them, and you think it may very well kill them, as has happened to some people, objectively, right? Have not some people died from, I don't know, certain substances, right?
Yeah.
And there are already task force in the United States that have taken upon themselves to hunt people that are homeschooling their children, to take them. I mean, this was on the verge of being passed, and there was legislation a few months ago. I don't know if it's been passed just yet, but this is the kind of stuff we're dealing with, man. So, I mean, how far are you willing to take it? Those people that advocate for nonviolence in every situation. I am not a pacifist. This is the fundamental distinction between, let's say, like someone that believes in, like, libertarian, like voluntarism, versus like a full-on, like, hippie. Like, I believe in self-defense.
Yeah.
And I'm not in line with the initiation of forced violence, but
I
at
agree.
what point are we is enough going to be, like, what's the line? To you, it's something as simple as, like, you're not even going to, like, wear a mask in any situation, which I respect, right? But for some people, it might come down to having their children forcibly boom shakalaka.
Yeah.
People have to ask themselves what their line is.
The line is different for different people. Like,
Sure.
I think if we went into another lockdown, a lot of people would start to ask more questions. A lot of people, because I think after the first lockdown, people were like, oh, well, that was pretty shit, but, like, now we're going. But after the second lockdown of that period of time, a lot of people started to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I think if there's another lockdown, people are going to go, hold on a minute.
Well, what do you think the general feeling is at the moment with people? Like, not what the media's projecting, like the people that, not just the people you hang out with, because you seem like you're at the heart of, like, the pulse, and you get a lot of, like, good feedback, and a lot of people calling you out for for questioning the narrative. Like,
At work, I see 100 people a week, I'd say. 100 people. And we always talk about it, sort of things, and whilst we're in the store, a lot of them take off the mask. A lot of them take off the mask when they say I'm not wearing it. They just take it off.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of them get changed, and then they're not wearing the mask, and it's like, and I speak to some people. I would say one in three think it's bullshit. One in the other, the other one out of the other two out of that three, one they buy it, and one they're just sick of it, but they just do it because what else are you gonna do?
Sure. When it comes to taking the Boom Shakalaka, do you think they'd actually go ahead with it?
No. I think there's going to be pretty big pushback. When it reaches the general population, I think there's going to be pretty big pushback. I was chatting to this older lady actually, and she's like, "This is all bullshit. I'm not taking that vaccine. They're gonna have to tie me down in order to vaccinate me." So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to Alan Joyce, the interesting thing is,
this from?
I don't know. I don't know where this meme was taken from, right? But I always find there's this discrepancy.
I posted
you
this.
posted? Oh, well, hell, I probably stole it from you. I was checking your stuff, man.
Yeah.
But there is this big discrepancy between what the mainstream is projecting in regards to how many people are in support of something.
Maybe that was a current affair.
Yeah. But the thing is, I posted this because on one hand, it seems pretty clear, at least on some circles, that there are very few people that are willing to, let's say, travel. And I'd say this is reflective of the people that are willing to take, Boom Shakalaka, because, I mean, traveling is pretty essential. If you're not willing to get Boom Shakalaka, if you have to get Boom Shakalaka to travel, that's pretty indicative of you not getting Boom Shakalaka, you know what I mean? But the mainstream media is presenting this idea that it's the inverse. Like, I saw a poll a while back, a few months back, where they were saying that, asking the amount of people would be willing to take the vaccine, and it was like 70 in favor. And then I had to look at another poll from another chat site. This is 9 News versus news.com.au, and they were completely inversed. And I don't know, I don't know if it's purposefully disingenuous, because sometimes when you have fan pages, people that are obviously in support of you, they tend to flock to your page. So, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but this is why it's really hard to get an idea of what the people want. Now, there are a lot of populists out there, a lot of people who believe in democracy. I don't believe in democracy outside of rights. Some people think that the people should be able to decide what you put in your body. I certainly don't.
I think the biggest illusion, one of the biggest lies we've been told is that we live in a democracy.
Well, it depends how people even look at democracy, man. Like, because the way you define it might be different the way others define it.
The fact that your vote will actually change something.
Sure. Well, fair enough. I agree with that. But the thing is, most people think you should be able to vote on everything. And classically speaking, that's not how the model of the United States was based on. Benjamin Franklin was vehemently opposed to the idea of democracy in that sense. He spoke about the tyranny of the majority, how you can have 51% of people enforcing their will on the 49%. Imagine if I suddenly said that, white people shouldn't be able to walk out in public. They should have a curfew because they're too violent or something. Between the hours,
that'd probably get up in the US. That would actually be voted into.
It's actually more. I think it's more likely they'd say that with black people, man, in regards to being more violent. Because there's no. I'm not playing the race card here. I'm just saying that there is this idea that they would never do it because they're so politically correct. But the idea is that black people are, because statistically, for whatever reason that might be, and that they're have less impulse control and they commit more crime, all that kind of stuff. So
less impulse. I don't know about less impulse control, but statistically they commit more crime in the US than
and look, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with this shit, but these are the kind of arguments you could make when you believe in democracy. This is why, classically speaking, those that believe in like freedom say that you should only be able to vote on things outside of your individual rights. Like, let's say we're all voluntarily paying tax in this system, right? And then we get to decide on what programs we want to focus on. We can vote on whether or not we save up money to go to the moon, or whether we focus on developing a vaccine for the virus.
Any human-made system, because of the way that humans are and human nature, is going to be corrupt in some regard.
Yes, but the problem with government is it has corruption built into it by default. You see, the problem I have is that people are under this idea that morality exists, but as soon as you have government, morality doesn't apply to them. Most people, and I could be wrong, believe it's wrong to steal, to hit, to take shit, all that kind of stuff.
When the government does it.
When the government does it,
It's
it's
fine,
acceptable.
yeah.
It's basically it's a form of monopolized violence,
Yeah.
It's like the mafia. Only thing is the mafia is good. The mafia does pretty much everything the government does, but because everyone knows that they're the mafia, they still have this idea, oh, they're bad. Therefore, there's an awareness.
Yeah.
But we're in this illusion where people believe in the power of authority, like the fact
It's the
that the
wolf
state...
in sheep's clothing. Government are the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there lies the issue, man.
Yeah. In terms of biblical prophecy, one of the U.S. government, the U.S. as a whole is one of the beasts in Revelation.
So what is the Because I know you're a deeply religious person. What is the Bible, the Revelation has to say in regards to what we're going on right now? What we're seeing going on right now?
Look, I'm not the best person to talk to because I'm not as learned as other people. So, however, what I will say is that I've learned a few things recently. In terms of the mark of the beast, people like to think it's a microchip in your hand or in your forehead, but the mark of the beast, what I've learned recently is that it's about worship and who you serve. Right? It's about the control over your mind and who you serve, right? In terms of like the Sabbath, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the near future there will be like an enforced worship to an Antichrist-like figure. There will be like a day of rest. And
well, there already is. I mean, the state is basically the representation of God. I mean, I shared this.
Yeah, you're right.
Meme a while ago that represents it. I mean, people believe in people give up all their power to this supreme being. It's in the same way that we look at God. I think a lot of people look at the state as being the supreme arbiter of justice.
Yeah. No, you're right. There's a dichotomy. There's the king of the north and there's the king of the south in Revelation. So the king of the south is the New World Order. So the New World Order, as we see come in terms of Biden, China, the vaccine, all this kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
It's not the real New World Order. It's the fake New World Order. The king of the north, which is the Antichrist, will come in like a whirlwind, and they will say, "We're going to save you from all these heinous things that are going on, all these plagues that are supposed to happen." I believe there will be other viruses as well that will be more virulent, that will actually kill people.
Sure.
They will do everything that they said COVID was going to do.
Absolutely.
Right? This very much seems to be a trial run for a lot of different things.
And that's real scary, man.
Yeah, it's harrowing, and but
because of how people actually would react. I mean,
Yeah.
given that this thing doesn't seem that bad. Imagine if it was like a 40% mortality rate.
It will be like The Walking Dead.
No, but I mean, like, people would actually be coming into your homes and forcing you and like imploring the government to come in your house and kill. Like, they'd be saying it openly. We're not seeing that now.
People will be coming into your house to steal food.
Yeah, true, that too. But
Yeah.
I'm saying that in where he's right. Sorry to digress here, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying I think people would really be openly calling people like you and I if they were resisting this thing.
They'll kill people.
People won't really do it openly right now because they can kind of see your viewpoint. But
Yeah.
if it was like a serious threat, yeah, that worries me.
Yeah, and so there's the king of the south, which is the New World Order that we see. But then things will get so bad, and there will be a king of the north, a savior. Someone will paint themselves as a savior. This will be the Antichrist, and it will say, "Worship me," and all of this will go away.
Mm-hmm.
And people will worship the Antichrist. This Antichrist will claim to be the Son of God, right? It'll do everything that in the Bible Jesus did. Will claim to like be the same thing that Jesus
do you
was in the Bible.
think it'd be referring to an actual figure, like a person, or do you think this might be represented by a system or like a boom shakalaka or something like that? Because a lot of people have theorized that the mark of the beast is actually these.
I don't think it's the vaccine.
Yeah,
I think it's pledging allegiance to the system of the beast, but I don't think. Yeah, it's a difficult one because if you look at before the flood, right, in Babylon, when there were like animal-human hybrids walking around then.
I actually believe that. It's interesting you bring this stuff up because I'm very much into the like ancient mystery schools, and they speak about this in so many of this stuff that it's like I actually like we speak like you're talking about Babylon, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these texts, a lot of the biblical texts, like have so many commonalities within so many of the stories within. Sumeria, like this is between the Tigris and Euphrates. This is supposed to be the cradle of civilization, 6,000 years old. They make reference to Eden in their creation stories, but the flood is something that is referenced not only in that culture but in pretty much every other culture, within the world. So
Yeah.
I mean, on the same.
It's funny you say that. I've been
mindset.
chatting to a lot of my Muslim friends about all this kind of stuff, and they agree with me on a lot of
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. They
Well,
believe in Antichrist. They believe in Mark of the Beast. They believe in all this kind of stuff. It's like, are we in the end times? Who knows? Who knows? Like, but it's seeming that way. Like, we're heading very, very closely to a transhumanist era. There are photos now surfacing online, like mainstream articles of like graphics of
hybrids.
people like having like holes in their spines where like they plug stuff in.
Yeah.
It's a complete bastardization of God's creation.
So what you're saying, and I'm probably kind of going on a tangent here, because I know you mentioned, one of the things that was going on in ancient Samaria, right, Babylon, right, was these hybrids and all that kind of stuff. And I've heard theories as to how this led to the fall of these civilizations.
Yeah.
You think we're going to see the same thing happening here? Because I'm inclined to believe that if we did go down that route, and we're already seeing this stuff with like.
I think God wouldn't allow
technology's
it.
like, well, bro, have you heard of CRISPR?
What's CRISPR?
You haven't heard of CRISPR?
No.
Bro, this is this stuff is here. Like, this is, okay. So
this is why
this is one of the technologies that was used to.
That we're in the end times. So
this is sure. So this is one of the. I watched a documentary on this maybe a year or two ago that blew my fucking mind. Right, and apparently there are elements of this technology in the Moderna. I actually don't want to speak out of hand, but I've heard this. Right, like it's modeled on the same kind of techniques. But CRISPR is this thing, right? Like it's basically some kind of thing that you can inject in yourself, right?
Yeah.
That essentially genetically reprograms your DNA, so you can genetically modify yourself. So you can actually code this shit, right? Like create things that can alter your DNA, and through a series of injections, you can change. Like they use this to cure like genetic problems and things like that. Yeah. But it can also be used to do anything you can imagine. Like let's say if you want to grow like have like glow in the dark genes, like the documentary I was watching was featuring how they were changing a dog's, like this dog breeder was creating dogs that had like some kind of, like it was trying to breed something, and the thing is you could see in the DNA, right, like this, like one of the techniques they use to be able to show where the genetic modification is taking place is they highlight, like they cause the certain DNA to glow. I know I'm being very ambivalent with this, but the fundamental idea is that you can use this technique. It's called CRISPR to genetically modify things, and they're using this to change like insect species. And the problem with this, right, is that let's say if you want to genetically engineer like a species like insects, right, this can have like long-term effects on the entire environment landscape. So in this documentary you saw people going to Africa, right? You know how malaria is a big problem in Africa? Like they were thinking of genetically engineering these insects. What are they called? They pass up malaria, whatever they're called, right? Mosquitoes, right?
I did see that,
Yeah, to not pass on this virus. However, there are potential problems that could arise from this, so they're talking to people, getting their consent. But imagine if people like you and I, had the power just to genetically engineer, and someone like me like struggles with this because I'm very libertarian, right? However, imagine if, in the same way that it's kind of scary someone having like nuclear weapons, imagine if someone could get access, and you can get access to this shit now, right? To genetically engineer entire species. So you can now change. It's like with Monsanto, right? It's so easy for that stuff to infect other species. It's one thing if they want to do this shit, and it's arguable to their own. In fact, I wouldn't even advocate for that because you're dealing with an actual being there. That's another story. But it's completely different if people start doing something which is going to like. Well, this is the argument, the socialists make. It's going to affect you, like with Monsanto, like genetically engineering crops that eventually get their seeds in other crops, and then now these companies can now sue you because they have patents on the crops. And it's made its way into.
So if they change you genetically, can they own you?
I heard someone speaking about this. Now, obviously,
James Corbett from CorbettReport.com has got a whole thing on this where, in terms of like, you could put something in a vaccine, inject it into someone, and therefore
you own that person
because you own the patent, and the patent you are no longer a human. You've been changed genetically to that patent.
Exactly. Look, legally. I don't care about legality. Legalese is a bullshit language where people can make up anything they want.
Correct.
Lawfully, of course you can't fucking do that, man. Like lawfully, this whole idea of intellectual property from a purely libertarian, like voluntary natural law standpoint, no, you can't fucking own someone like that. I don't fucking care if you modify them. Now, it becomes an issue when you're consenting to that kind of shit. Like, like if someone consents to
What kind of idiot would consent to that?
being owned and modified, but
Yeah.
like personally, no, I do not believe that a company, just because they've given you something that has altered your DNA and they have a patent in that technology, they have the right to own you. Now, granted, there may be laws. I believe there are. People are saying that there are laws that have been passed to allow these to actually make that a fact. But I don't fucking care. You can pass a law to do anything. There are laws now forcing people like you and I to get vaccinated. There are laws that are putting us into detention centers just because it's a legal thing, right?
Get
Doesn't
ready
make it right.
Get ready for the detention centers, because that's coming.
Yeah, but that's
the reality, and this is what people don't understand, is that like this is the road that we're heading down, and like if people don't actually do something, if like, I actually think we've passed the point of no return. I think this is it.
Well, look, I think it's going to have to get a lot worse before it gets better. I think one of the good ways to see the future is to have a look at history. And whereas they say history repeats itself, history certainly rhymes, but I do believe that like Martin Luther King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but always bends towards justice. And I love that because it represents this idea that when we are looking back, into now, it's kind of hard to see like I guess it's all perspective, but there is this slow increment, like where we're moving towards like, don't get me wrong, we're going back. It's kind of like spiral-like. We're repeating history. We're seeing the same stupid things, taking away of rights, doing horrible things in the name of safety. But we also
rise and fall.
Absolutely, we also get a little better each time we come about from this shit, because we're seeing the same stuff that is happening now. For instance, governments coming up with stupid justifications to destroy people. Like, oh, you put something.
I think it's different this time because you're actually not going to be human anymore, and so that is a.
What does it mean? Do you think this comes down to like, do you think we've been evolving? Do you think humans now...
You'll be merging with the system of the beast.
But let's say humans now, do you think humans now are any different to humans 100,000, 200,000 years ago? Like, do you think, what's your perspective on that? Do you think we've been born in this image and there's been no genetic...
Yes.
Do you think that... So you don't buy... No. Okay. Well, if you're coming in from that perspective, sure, I can see what you're saying. But I think even if you look at it from the perspective that as human beings, this is... Do you think that obviously you pass on traits to your children?
Yeah,
okay, so there's definitely an element. And do you think the things that we're going through, like phylogenetic programming, like you go through certain experiences, right, in your life, and you pass that on to your children? There's definitely a morphing of. There's a growth in the human species. Like obviously we're changing over time. Maybe not on this big scale where we're seeing like massive evolutionary changes, but I think humans now, even on a genetic level, we're somewhat different. We're more susceptible to certain things. I believe that you can actually, like, there is something to be said for like ancestral trait, that kind of stuff. Like, so there are theories that the reason why children are naturally afraid of the dark, for instance, is because quite potentially, many thousands of years ago, our ancestors, had to fight. Were afraid of the dark because no dark meant threat from the unknown, that kind of stuff, and like they passed on these traits to children over time. This is why also children are afraid of like big bears and scary things like that. There's certain traits that we pass on, and I think as the environment changes, like I believe in the idea of epigenetics, how our environment actually changes us. So it's quite possible that humans now, because we're inundated with all this information, right? Like a child now in the 21st century is very different to a child growing up even just a generation ago. And as a result, there's a change in our psyche. Now, you can say that this is a nurture thing, but I think it also manifests within our DNA. Our DNAs are antennas. They receive information. This is according to Bruce Lipton, who is one of the most foremost epigeneticists and is 100% legit. Like, our DNA actually changes. I know Moderna changes our DNA as well, right? Like, on a very tangible level. But our DNA is also experiencing changes from the environment. So, that being said, I think we are always changing. Now, granted, there's going to be a massive change. This is nuance here. If we start taking some boom shakalaka, right? Like actually changes that DNA.
There's a difference between something like that, which is a natural process.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
And injecting a foreign substance into your body, which has been genetically
I hear what you're
engineered
saying.
by
I agree.
a company with sketchy moral values.
I agree. One is infinitely more drastic, and this is what we're talking about here. Like the degrees here are on
Yeah.
different levels. And I think that's what we're facing. I think 2020 is basically set, like we're talking about the new world, like a new beginning. In fact, I titled this video like a new world or something like that in the US. And I think we're moving to a new world in the sense that, granted, we may not be, there are obviously changes that are taking place right now. The fact that we're in this lockdown world, the fact that the governments have now manifested these new set of laws where at any point in time they can just shut people down just like that. We've seen censorship become insane. People are getting censored for simply sharing information from sites that have had a past of sharing bad information before.
Yeah.
And the president of the United States has been censored.
Yeah.
Now I can't even go out and publicly where...
I shared something earlier. It's like Cuties is still on Netflix, but the president of the United States can't be on Twitter.
Yeah, man. And that pretty much sums up the current state of things, man. So I think 2021 is not going to be vastly different to 2020 in the fact that we're moving at a rapid rate now. I believe we're moving into new times, man. Like the zeitgeist is looking very Orwellian. And
yeah, I went and trained at a different gym the other day, and I had to stand in front of this camera, and it took my temperature. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. Like I was like, what do I do? Like, is it just taking my temperature? And as soon as it happened, I was like, I wish I didn't do that.
I was just gonna ask you.
I was like,
oh my god, yeah.
I reckon that's taking a snapshot of my face. I'm on a record somewhere. Like, if there's a case of the Rona Chan, then like I'm. What are they?
Yeah. Well, you share this on your pen, and this blew my mind. Last thing we'll talk about. I know we've been going for this for a long while, but I wanted to do a long podcast where we go into a lot of stuff with you. So apparently, now you know how when you apply for a loan or something like that, banks essentially they want to do a record, so they want to check your credit rating, all that kind of stuff. And apparently, the new idea that we're apparently maybe moving into is a system where these banks are now going to get access to your data from Google. And this really made me think, because I've started like being really apprehensive about the information I share to these social media sites now, because at some point, because I saw this happening last year, police will actually like come into your house by accessing your posts on Facebook and shit like that. And this is stuff that you're publicly putting out there. Now imagine if they wanted to get access to the database of Google, right? And get access to stuff that you haven't publicly put out, but has been privately, you've given them this information thinking that it's not going to be used against you. Now banks
that's going to happen.
That's going to happen.
That'll
This is what's going on in China, man.
Yeah,
and
it's going to happen. There'll be a social credit system like there is in China.
And that's the most look, a lot of people think when I speak about China I'm being racist. Hey, Bruce Lee's my favorite guy, so I love how people do that shit, you know.
Man, this is the thing. Like, you can criticize the actions of a government, but still like the people. Yeah,
I'm talking about ideas here. I'm talking about principles. I'm talking about like philosophies. I don't care about I either like you as an individual or I don't. I don't care about your race and all that kind of stuff. But if we're generalizing, we're looking at China as an entity, like what the government openly does, right? I mean, look, you can make arguments the United States is probably just as fucked up in certain ways, but the difference to me is that openly China does this stuff. Openly, the Chinese government go after people that have said things that they just don't agree with no base, and they lock them up. Whereas in Australia, we lock you up for maybe a few days, right? And, give you, and then, look, granted that we've been doing some douchey stuff. In China, they lock people up for the rest of their lives. In China, people go missing. In China, you cross the street when there's a red light or some shit like that, when it's not saying you should walk, and you will get fined automatically. You'll have like certain amount of money deducted from your account. Yep. This is the world that we're moving into, ladies and gentlemen. And look, a lot of people have been calling you and I conspiracy theorists, and I find it fascinating that last year we saw so many.
The thing is, like, I am a conspiracy theorist. I believe in conspiracies, and I often speculate and theorize about them.
Okay.
And often I'm right.
Okay.
I'm right. I remember this.
All right.
Sorry to
that's interesting to hear you go that in that angle.
I remember 5 months ago I said in certain industries you'll need to get a test, a COVID test in order to go to work. What did you have to do? You have to take a COVID test to go to work.
Okay.
I said there would be a vaccine and that would be coerced. What do we see now?
Well, the question.
What's coming out now?
All right. Well, the question is, how did you arrive at your conspiracy theories? Did you conjure them up out of air and imagination, or did you do research and have a look at the plans of what?
I did research and I looked at the plans. What's happening now is following a plan.
Absolutely. I don't call that a theory. If the World Health Organization has a certain agenda, right, that they're trying to bring about, I don't call that a theory. Like, I call that, like, a fact, you know? Now, granted, it may not come into being because we're dealing in the future here, but I don't play this game where I try to, like, make up. I mean, I do this sometimes. You know, I talk about UFOs coming down to planet Earth and doing all this kind of shit. But the point is, I base most of my theories, which are they're not real theory. They're on plans that the people have actually set out that they're trying to.
Have you ever
achieve.
put a tinfoil hat on your head?
No, I haven't.
You should try it.
Why?
It actually works.
What does it do? It protects you from radiation.
Correct.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's
So,
that's what this thing is for. It actually protects you from. It's legit. Like, it's actually been tested by an institute. Actually, I actually have an not an e-meter. Fuck, they're fake. But I actually have a device that actually measures the radiation being emitted from electronic devices because I'm electrosensitive, and this actually significantly once you put this little thing, I forget what it's called, but it's a quantum.
What are they?
Well, I have it on all of my mobile devices. I'm not sure if you can see this thing here, but it's a quantum, what's it called? Quantum shield, and it actually reduces the level of radiation that's being emitted. Now, there's certain devices like phones when you're making calls, particularly when the battery's low, and Wi-Fi routers, and microwaves. I got rid of my microwave once I tested that. It's like, you have, most of the shit is kind of like, but once you turn on the microwave, the entire, like, the device I have goes fucking crazy, man.
Wow.
Do you know how microwaves came about, man? This is a
No,
fascinating.
I don't.
Okay, so in the military, when they had sonar, right?
Yeah.
The people in the room that were using sonar, they found that when they had the sonar on, they had chocolate bars in their pants. They would melt. These bars would melt, and and then they realized that the sonar is actually melting the chocolate bars.
Yeah.
So they came up with this invention, and initially they were going to call it like some weird thing like radar, sonar waves or something like that. But it seemed a bit too kind of crazy, so they called it the microwave.
Yeah.
But yeah, these things actually emit radiation, and look, and this is the thing. According to this is mainstream, by the way. They actually recommend, these phone companies actually recommend that you either get a Bluetooth headset device. Some people say that that's emitting radiation, but fundamentally, I've actually tested it. A lot better. Obviously, depends on the device. Or you use speakerphone. You're not supposed to put your phones right close to your ear because it can have detrimental effects on you. And this device is actually cuts it off.
People will call you a conspiracy theorist for saying that.
Well, that's the thing. I deal in conspiracy fact. This is actually, the fact is, most people don't even look at the news, period. You know, like this is mainstream stuff. I also look at stuff that's not mainstream, and I come up with facts based off of that. And yeah, some people call that conspiracy theories. I call it conspiracy truth.
This was about after I made one of my first videos, I went public with my views on everything.
Yeah.
This guy sent me a study, and I said that 5G was bad. This guy sent me a study talking about tumours in people, like with 4G radiation, and he said, it's fine. And in the study he sent me, it said that there were tumours in people. Like it was a longitudinal study. There were tumours in people that had used like their phone like this.
Yeah. He
didn't even read the study he sent me.
Yeah, that's the thing. Most people don't have the time for this shit. According to like this,
what do you mean?
they're the same woman that was actually one of the whistleblowers for cigarette smoking. You know, she's on one of the lead areas to investigating this shit. Like she covered, she went through the entire history of cell phone radiation, all this kind of stuff, and she was talking about the dangers of this stuff, about how they've actually tested this stuff on animals, and they found results to show that this stuff is worrying, is alarming. Yes, it does affect you. It does actually, they can actually measure like the question is how dangerous it is. It's not a question of whether or not this stuff affects you and can lead to cancer.
But it does.
Objectively, it does. Yeah. The question is at what level? Because here's the problem, right? Everything in the modern era, you are inundated. I made a video on this. If you go to one of those power lines, right? And I have a device, right? I actually went around my entire block testing this shit. Because I'm not I actually based this off of, granted I'm actually sensitive to this shit. I wanted to actually measure this shit. And I've done this with other devices, all right? The actual tower, right, the 5G tower, it emits radiation, all right, that can actually be detected. Closer you get to it. But the thing is, even within like, a few feet away, it's still very powerful. The reality, in particular, those power lines, those massive power lines, I don't even need the device, right? Like when I'm around an area with massive power lines, it actually hurts a little.
Yeah.
I'm that sensitive to it, right?
Yeah,
and there's some people that have
I'm
the point
pretty
where
sensitive to that stuff too.
Yeah, well, there's some
You
people
just
that
gotta
have.
block. It's part of living in society. You kind of got to block it out.
Yeah.
You drive 2 hours out into the country, you can breathe.
And you can see the stars, man. No smog. So the
Yeah.
question is, how much do you want to expose yourself to that stuff? Because we're
Get
all
out
going to
of
be
the
bugged. And this is the issue. Like, a lot of people make the argument they don't want to be around any of this shit because it's not natural. Well, do you want to go live out on a farm and not have access to any technology whatsoever?
Maybe.
And look,
It might change your life. You might actually feel so much better.
maybe fair enough. And the thing is
I
that
hate technology. If you couldn't go.
no, you don't, because you still use it. That would make you a little hypocritical, right?
Maybe a little bit. I hate it.
Yeah.
Well, hence the self-loathing.
Yeah. Do you hate your clothes? Obviously not.
Yeah. I hate.
Are they
This is
technology?
made in China. I have to say this is what.
No, I know what you're saying. And look,
Yeah.
you're talking about things like the microphone. But the thing is, it comes down to definitions, man.
Yeah.
But look, let's wind this thing down. We got a few questions here. I thought it'd be rude if I didn't address some of the. Maybe they're just comments. But Adrian Woodcock has been commenting a little. He said, "What city are you guys in?" We can disclose that, right? The Popo aren't going to come after us. Yeah, we're in Melbourne, Australia, bro. It's awesome to see Australia Freedom Channel run by young people with a real understanding of principles. Thanks, bro. Team Satan. Well, I'm definitely not on Team Satan, but
No.
thanks,
I think that came up when we were talking about the laws in California regarding.
Yeah, man. I call them the devil's law. Anytime I'm people making like laws that go against people's human rights, I call that the devil's law. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, finally, yeah, the side effects of the boom shakalaka will be blamed on a virus, probably blamed on a bio one. We need numbers. That's the only way we're going to win freedom, and that's true. Like, I truly believe that. Look, as much as I advocate for self-defense and all that kind of stuff, realistically, unless of course enough people change their minds about this. Even if we had a truly free society, like people respected this was lawful. If we're living in a society where people are shaming you and don't want you out in public, you're still going to feel the effects of that.
Yeah, 100%.
So unless, of course, we change enough minds, right? Unless, of course, enough people, unless you learn to have these conversations, these unpleasant conversations sometimes with people that you don't agree with, like, this is what I love about you, man. Like, we're not going to agree with everything, but you're still, we're on the same page with most of the shit,
Yeah.
But you're still open enough. And I know you have conversations with people that you completely disagree with, right? Yeah, unless you're willing to have these conversations, we're really not going to get anywhere. Because what's his name? Not Martin Luther King. My other favorite president said, those that make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And the reality is that if we can protest, as in talk about, share this information, converse. This is the whole idea of freedom of speech. It's a marketplace for an exchange of ideas. If we don't have that outlet, that manifests with people feeling like they don't have a voice. And I would believe leaning towards violence. And this is why we see shootings, because people don't have a voice. So this censorship shit that is going on around the world, I don't want to talk to you because you're a conspiracy theorist. Fair enough. It's your right to do that. I don't really respect it, but you're only going to perpetuate the problem if you aren't willing to have this battle, because it's going to manifest in one way or another.
The only way to beat bad speech is with good speech.
Exactly. Anyway, Nathan, I've waffled on for long enough. Do you want to sum this thing up? First of all, just give out your social media and just close it.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Nathan Kyle. So Nathan_Kyle, but Kyle, the E is with a 3, and Nathan Kyle on Facebook.
Absolutely. And I urge every single one of you that checks this out to follow Nathan. He is someone that is a staunch advocate of freedom. I think I'm pretty gung-ho, at least I try to be when I'm online, but I look at what this guy is doing in the real world, and I'm like, fuck, maybe I need to lift my game. So kudos to you, man. I salute what you're doing. You're a scholar, you're a gentleman, and I admire your principles, man. And I think the world definitely needs more people like you, my brother. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, peace out, keep it real. Be sure to drop us some comments, let us know what you think, and smash the like button, smash the share button. Tell your mom, tell your friends. Peace be upon your butt cheeks. Be sure to be kind to each other, love each other, and try to open your minds, man. There's more to this world than meets the eye. Don't just buy into the mainstream, man. Look at some conspiracy facts and expand your consciousness.
Jeffrey Epstein. Look at Jeffrey Epstein. He didn't kill himself.
Check out the the Illuminati and other conspiratorial things. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave it there. Peace out. Keep it real. Boom shakalaka.
Fuck, I'm knackered. That was
That was like a 2.5 hour podcast.
yeah, I need to sleep. Yeah.
You told me that it can't be done, but I told you the battle was over before the game was done. Now if you think that I'm gonna let you run my body, my heart, and my mind, then you better listen, son. Oh, you think you're invaluable, yeah, act like an eagle. Think you're gonna soar like a bird beyond the possible. I think it's plain to see, you know you're meant to be. Once, two, worlds of two, gotta think and stop. What you want, it always what you